and beyond.
Oh no, this is it. Thank you. Ready? All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October 25th Albany Port District Commission meeting. My name is Georgette Steffens, and I'm the chair of the commission. We'll go around and introduce ourselves.
I'm Joe Coffey, Commissioner.
Don Montagliano, Commissioner. Bill Ring, Federal Marine Terminals. Tom McGinnis, Port of Albany.
Annette Gasberry, Port of Albany.
Megan Haley, Port of Albany.
Tony Vassell, Business Development and Marketing Manager.
Patrick Jordan, General Counsel.
Eric Smith, Director of Internal Controls and Enterprise Analysis.
Richard Hendrick, General Manager.
Okay, so everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from our September 27th board meeting. If there are no questions or suggested changes, I'll take an accepted motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I will turn it over to our treasurer for our finance committee update.
This morning we had a finance committee meeting. We met and discussed the proposed 2018 budget. We wanted to thank Eric. I think the budget document presented for the proposed budget is always thorough, and the narrative of explaining what we were doing and how much everything is going to be and aligning was excellent as always. We did ask Eric if he would spend a little time to add to the narrative the why of some of what we're doing. And the purpose of that is really to weave that into the documents of those who perhaps are not as close to the budget as we are, have a better understanding of the investments we're making and why we're doing it. So I want to thank you for doing that. After we did review it, the Finance Committee is recommending to the full board that we adopt the budget as presented to the Finance Committee this morning. It's in the packages for the board members.
So with that, we have a resolution 18-2017, which is in accordance with the Public Authorities Accountability Act of 2005. The Port District Commission is required to adopt the 2018 annual budget no later than November 1st, so we're well within that. And the commissioners have reviewed the proposed 2018 annual budget, and the Albany Port District Commission approved the 2018 Albany Port District Commission annual budget. So take a motion on the resolution.
I move that we adopt Resolution 18-2017, approving the 2018 annual budget.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. So Rich, you're going to give us some contract updates?
Excuse me. Thank you. Both projects that we're currently working on, the South Wharf work being conducted by Harrison Burroughs is running right on schedule. The plan is that the Walton pipe piles for the first phase of the work are in place. They're making final cuts to them as we speak, and the cages for the reinforcement are on site. They plan on pouring concrete within the next few weeks, so that's moving along very nice. The warehouse project, the rigid inclusions are complete. We've received the as-built drawings for that. I expect by this Friday to have from the engineers and the construction company the approval for them to submit the plan for the building. I'm hoping that we're going to see foundation pours within the next month there, and then soon after that, that building will be rising up, and we'll get the other three contractors working on the electric, the fire protection, and the heating and ventilation during the course of the winter.
On the wharf project, what percent complete are we thereabouts with regard to the actual work?
Probably 15%, because it's broken into two phases, and then once they get this concrete poured, we'll be probably closer to 50% on the South Wharf project itself. The north will begin next year after the window opens for the in-stream work.
Have there been any additional requests for changes to the contract yet?
We have one that we're working on. What we did, originally when we had started the work, we were planning on doing the north side of the project first. After discussions with the contractor, found that working to the south benefited everybody with laydown area and everything else. In the south portion of the work, we have the requirement by New York State DEC for the CDS unit for stormwater management. That was not in the original drawings. When we learned of the requirement, we were well into the bidding process. Rather than stopping and having that put in by the engineers to start the process again, I had told them that we would make a contract adjustment because it was a requirement. Now that we've got to the point on that, I'll be receiving a contract change order on the CDS unit. Eric and I and John Costa spoke this morning, and we're recommending doing a contract change order on that instead of using the funding that we had set aside in contingency. The CDS unit would probably use up most of what we had for contingency. So once we get that, we'll present for a contract change order on that. But that's the only one that we have seen or anticipate, at least through this first phase of the project.
And, so the shed, right, was part of the moving the shed, and where's that from?
We just filed our quarterly reports with the federal government. We are 1 to 2 months behind on just that phase of the project, with going to engineering on the new warehouse that would replace Shed 1. We've taken a step back to get the 2 projects that are going now well underway, and at the end of the day, we wanted to alleviate a possible cash flow with the 3rd project going at the same time. We believe that we'll be in a good position, hopefully within the next month, where we can get the engineering going.
Well, to do the procurement for
Yeah.
the design part of the project, we'd originally intended to do, we're exploring the RFP process now to do it for engineering and then construction, or to consider design build phase. So we're exploring, examples of both of those.
Yeah, the original intention was that we would be out for procurement for engineering in September. We're running about 6 to 8 weeks behind on just that, but we're still going to be within the window where everything should be completed by December 2020.
Any other items?
No, not that I know of. Any questions on any?
So are there any updates on lease negotiations or for public session?
I don't believe so.
Great. So then, Tony, you're gonna give us an update on how the month fared, as well as what we're looking at for year end?
Okay, thank you. Does everybody have their ships, barges, and tonnage report?
Yes, thank you.
But before we go into that, I'd like to comment on the Break Bulk Conference, the annual Break Bulk Conference in Houston that Bill Ring and I attended last week. There were over 5,000 individuals there from break bulk market, heavy lift project cargo, domestic, international transportation. We met with our existing customers, some prospects, and just some of the major things that came out of there. Last month I mentioned that we were working on for 6 years now on a project, and we've made 3 PowerPoint presentations, and we're nearing getting there, and we met with the two ocean carriers that are looking to handle it. The one came in yesterday and visited our facilities and looked at it. They've been here before. And then the other was the one that brought in the beer tanks from China and moved on to Rochester. So that is looking good, 6 years in the making. Then there's a power plant project that we've been working on, and over a 3-year period, attended a couple of public meetings south of here, and that looks good. And if we get it, it'll move over west. And then we're working on some railway passenger cars. And at this point in time, it looks like the Port of Baltimore has the upper hand because they have roll-on, roll-off service. And on the production schedule from 1 to 14, it would move via railroad. Now, if the production schedule ramps up beyond 14 or so, then we're in good stead to handle that. So we're going to continue monitoring and working on that. One major project has been moved from 2018 to 2019, and we picked up a movement of 2 transformers second quarter next year. So that's just a rough idea of the meetings we had down there.
Any other roll-on, roll-off industry update that you might give us?
I know, I was thinking the same thing. It's exciting that we will not be out of the running once we have this project done, right?
Well, it's interesting because we've checked a while back, the big bites of business, the Caterpillars, the John Deeres. When I was a partner in a steamship company, I used to go out and visit them and everything like that. And Baltimore is the capital of roll-on, roll-off. In addition to autos, they have all the carriers there. We've been exploring the possibility of more domestic type transportation. And we have spoken to a number of people just to let them know. And once things get going, we'll be advertising it and letting people know. Also working with an individual who has started with a company in Connecticut who may have some cargo. So tomorrow I'm meeting with the Port of New York and New Jersey to talk about barge service. At a meeting I ran into them down in New York. They mentioned a topic, so we have a couple of topics on the agenda. So we have been, exploring Ro-Ro. Nothing identified at this point in time. The big stuff, we're not going to get the John Deeres and the Cats or anybody like that. That's a specialized market, but we've kind of zeroed in on others.
To add to that, when you mention this to the freight forwarders, the people that move, I mean, there's times we get transformers or 1 or 2 heavy lifts, they'll offload in New Jersey and barge up here, and then, of course, you have to bring the floating crane up to do it. So people are handling those and even domestic movements. But we mentioned the Ro-Ro situation. It perks them up because it eliminates the cost of the floating crane, which is approximately $80,000 a pop. Or even more now, I think it's a little more than that. So they'll look at that different and have different options to present to them for that, which is a cost savings for them. So, like Tony said, once it's up and running, we can definitely get that word out. I think it's going to make people interested.
And that's part of the basis for the meeting tomorrow with the Port of New York and New Jersey to identify with them can we put together something. There is one carrier down there, ACL, railroad carrier. You're looking at a different market segment of business, so we're looking at that. Any questions?
Cool when you bring us in on your industry meeting.
Okay, they're fun. Okay, here we go once again. Ships, barges, tonnage report for September 2017. The 2 charts top left, outbound, top right, inbound. And if you move down to the year-to-date, well, September last year were 5, September this year 6. So year-to-date totals last year 48, this year 53. We're 5 ahead or 10%, which we're holding well. It's primarily in the heavy lift and project cargo sector, 4 up, and in the bulk sector with Cargill down 2 and our molasses and fertilizer down 2. That is a interesting situation. And then this year, we were able to secure wind energy business, so we've had 4 vessel calls based on the wind energy. So those are extra, or pieces of business we've secured. Any question on that first page? Okay, second page. Just basically, if you look at the 2 bars in the chart, in the graph on the right-hand side, last year, down at the bottom, 33,260 tons. This year, 33,145. We're down 115 tons, or 0%, basically the same as last year. Moving on to the third page, tonnage report year-to-date. Top left is outbound, top right is inbound. If you take a look at the totals, the outbound is down around 24%. The inbound is up around 39%. So as I mentioned last month, we have it, might be termed an inversion. Last year it was just the opposite. So when you're comparing last year's tons versus this year, year-to-date total about the middle of the page, last year 233,703. This year, 216,766, or down around 16,900 tons. Well, when you take into account Cargill being, or grain being down to 52,000 tons, and molasses and fertilizer being down 13, that's 65,000 tons in that bulk sector. Some of that's been made up in the heavy lift and project cargo sector, around 17,000 tons. The wind energy has contributed about 3,300 tons. And some of the other items like the steel and urea, which we picked up on those beer tank ships, have helped, make that 65,000 ton shortfall somewhat less. So we're down around 16,000 tons, or 7% year-to-date on tonnage. And any questions? Okay.
Any industry conversation on that grain that we should talk about, or that would be interesting, because you've been enlightening me on that.
I guess just the grain, its markets. The grain market for Canada 2 years ago tanked. So another railroad stepped in, and they were able to handle it. Now the overall harvest situation is different. Talking to the railroad, CSX Railroad in Jacksonville, because the kind of thought was that there's an equalization situation. The railroad, CSX, equalizes the price from Chicago to Albany that is experienced from Chicago down to New Orleans and Houston. And that is the main thoroughfare. There's more ships going there. It's a big bulk market down in New Orleans. So what we're going to try to do once these things start developing is talk further to both railroads about the ability to continue bringing in grain. The CSX said, yes, we do want to talk. So, we're working on that, and hopefully, we'll be able to, pull back some of that. It's interesting because it's been mentioned that some inbound, Brazil and Argentina have about 70% of the overall market. They've been coming out with some very good harvests, so they are a major factor against the U.S. grain producers. So we might be getting imports, but we're trying, we'll try to play both sides,
Right.
import and export.
Right.
Thank you. And then moving over to longshore hours, in the top left, we're at almost 51,000 hours this year versus 28 last year, up 22,000 or 70-some%. Already surpassed last year's of 44,000. So now I turn it to the inimitable Mr. Bill Ring.
Thanks, Tom. In addition to Tony's comments about our trip to Houston, we also met with Tetra Technologies, who's the calcium chloride customer that has all the bags over at Metzler. Just to, feel them out and meet them and just see how things are. They're happy. They've been happy with bringing business in here. Right now we're kind of weather-driven. The balance that's left over there is spec cargo. They're just kind of waiting to see if we have a we have a little bit of a winter, a heavy winter early on, then that stuff will move, and then they'll consider bringing another load in. They're just kind of non-committal right now. But based on things that are happening over there and things happening over here, hopefully it'll give us a heads up, because if they do 10,000 again, we'll be pressed for space. But, well, you know, if it happens,
Well,
we'll deal with
insert
it.
one thing here, at that luncheon with the two other, the top individuals in the supply chain, Bill introduced a positive note and said that, I believe he and others noticed that the squirrels are pretty fat this year, so it might be a good year for weather. I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
Farmer's Almanac,
Farmer-
doesn't it?
the old Farmer's Almanac, or, you know, whatever. I hadn't heard that down in Texas.
But they have some other things, so.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, this half of the year, this quarter, and it looks like going forward, our ship traffic is down, and it's kind of looking that way right now. As you can see, the terminal is emptying out, everything that we got first half of the year is, slowly coming to an end. The GE wind cargo we just got will probably start moving in November. Some good news is, one of these large GE projects that's been sitting here for quite some time now, looks like is going to move in November, and that's a large cargo. It's teetering between truck and ship. We're hoping ship. It's a larger revenue stream, so as soon as they make up their mind. And there's one other export project that's fairly large, it looks like could leave maybe in November. So November could have a little bit of a boost to it, between the blades and everything else. Beyond that, we're, it's really hard to tell. We're hoping for another pulp ship or two, another scrap ship or two to get the numbers up. And as Tony mentioned, we're working on some inbound projects again for next year. I don't think it'll be quite the volume we saw first half of this year, but similar cargo, Hersig's volume cargo, and the reason that Tony mentioned one of the projects, the heavy cargo will move via Rensselaer. The reason being, if they offload it in Albany, either by rail or truck, they can't get over the bridges. It's going to be too heavy to get to the other side, so they'll put it on trailers and beams and stands and truck deliver from that side. So we're working on those, trying to get the details, but it looks like going into the first quarter of next year, we could have a good influx of import cargo again, so at least we'll have a good jump start. Export-wise, things are kind of iffy from what we're being told. So not a lot of stuff on the books right now for outbound, but you never know. We're just trying to keep everybody busy as much as we can.
Thank you, Bill.
Are there any questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony. I think the way you started off the meeting was really helpful in that conversation, helping us really understand
Just showing
where
numbers
you're
every
looking
month
at.
gets a little.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's helpful for us to sort of hear how long you've been trying to dance with some of these customers, right, and that process.
Sometimes a waltz, a polka, and other
You
dances.
But it puts your reports in context, and I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
helpful.
really
Thank
helpful.
you.
And
So
the
thank you so
cycle of
much.
supply chain too, as things are being made even, or before they're even being made, then move.
Is there any other business or any other questions?
No, we have a couple of lease negotiations for executive session.
Sure. So with that, due to discussion of lease negotiations, I'll take a motion to enter executive
I'll
session.
move that we enter executive session. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bill?
Okay, so no action was taken during executive session. Our next board meeting is Wednesday, November 15th at 12:30. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Good luck tomorrow.
Whatever, Dominic.
You gotta drive yourself, or you